It is a pleasant Sunday morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us at 107.7 Music for Life. I am Rennie Bishop with my co-host, Sharmain Baboolal. Good morning to you, Sharmain. How are you?
Good morning. I'm pretty good and above the weather, way above the weather this morning.
One needs to be above this weather. It's been raining all night. I guess the Water and Sewage Authority will have no complaints this morning about enough to fill up their reservoirs. The issue is if they have the reservoirs and all in place to accommodate all that we've had coming down. This is Brunch. The suppliers of Brunch for us is Sierra Leone. We thank you so much. And the guests we have here make our morning exactly what it's intended to be. A very enlightening one. So we always thank them in advance. Welcome inside the program Brunch. Let us get started, Sharmain. We've got a tight plate on for our listeners this morning.
Okay, we start this morning. We go back to the issues that are plaguing the nation's prisons as well, because we've had following the beating on Remand Yard at Golden Grove Remand Yard, and after that we've had a situation at the female prison. So we have not had yet, while we've had the perspective of the prisoner and a balanced view, the perspective of the prison officer as well, from Attorney General Gerald Remand. We have this morning with us Mr. Roberts, the General Secretary of the Prison Officers Association.
It's Mr. Gordon.
Gerald Gordon.
Gerald Gordon, yes. That's all right.
Thank
That's
you
okay.
very much.
That's okay.
I am possibly under the weather. I was probably wrong. Good morning, Mr. Gordon.
Good morning, Sharon, good morning.
It's Sharmain.
Oh.
So did you, okay, good. We're on equal footing.
Yes.
We started.
Good morning,
even
Sharmain.
yes.
Good morning to Mr. Bishop.
Good morning,
Good morning
sir.
to Trinidad and Tobago.
The good thing about it is that Sharmain, as you know, puts all the work into getting this together. So I know she's just caught up with the notes and the weather, but it's good to have you here. There are a lot of issues we are looking at here. Overcrowded, understaffing. We've got both the Port of Spain prison and the Golden Grove prison in Aruca outfitted to, as a remand facility to house a couple of hundred prisoners. They are way understaffed, and oversubscribed. Yes. The problem is we have been hearing reports on this situation as far back as the 1980s. And every government they get a report, they appoint a commission, get a report, and then they say we got to implement some parts of this immediately. And I look back as far as 1980 and came all the way up to what we had very recently, statements being made as to what must be done with the overcrowding and the understaffing. And it sounds like the same thing they just copied from 1980 and pasted into 2015. Why has nothing been done, and why has it been ignored by successive governments?
Well, good morning again.
Good morning again.
Well, it goes even further back than that. We could have reports going way back to even before, somewhere in the 60s. And this is my personal opinion. Why we have not seen the sort of focus that we would want is simply because it is not an attractive thing. And when I say attractive to the politicians. Also, when you look at, there's a great misunderstanding of the role and function of prisons and corrections within a society like ours, and because there's that misunderstanding, then the necessary focus is not going to be there because people don't understand exactly what that role is. And what we need to understand is that criminality is a very serious issue. And where the prison is placed is in two basic positions. One, obviously, to hold offenders, remandees, for whatever period of time as so designated by the court. And then we have a new mandate, which is to assist in the restoration of the individuals who find themselves on the other side of the law and behind the walls of the prison. Our current situation is one where our convicted population, those are people who have been sentenced, is being overshadowed by the remanded individuals.
And just before you continue there, I want you to make that very clear for our listeners, because differentiating between the prison and the remand yard, there is a big difference. Two different types of responsibility, two different sets of people inside of there. Differentiate for our listeners.
Okay, so the convicted person is obviously the ones who would have gone to court and would have received whatever sentence, 3 months, 6 years, life imprisonment for whatever class of crime they would have committed. The remand individual is only being charged and being held at the prison to be presented to the court at that appointed time. So right now we have a remand population overall that is more than the people who are convicted. So right now we're in a bottleneck situation. And one would understand, without infrastructure, without staff, without that whole executive support, and when I say executive, I mean government support. And then you have the judiciary on the other end. And I know I've been getting some feedback. The judiciary doesn't like it too much when I say these things, but it must be said, is that they are not recognizing their true position in having this problem alleviated. Because when you have an individual, and it's a basic human issue, let's put away prison officer, prisoner, we're talking about citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and we're talking about dispensation of justice. And when you have an individual who would have been arrested, charged, go to court, refuse bail, and then their matter goes on not for 2 days, 6 months, 7, 8, and 9 years. One really it's a human issue.
This is criminal.
Yeah, and the judiciary needs to take a big responsibility for that, because we are in the unenviable position that we can't refuse. So they arrest the people, they go to court, and they send them to us, and we have to find a place to place them. And even recently we had that Bail Amendment Act, and they have now extended. It's 120 days for people who are found with illegal firearms or whatnot. Now, we understand the government's willingness to want to deal with crime, but you cannot seriously deal with crime in silos. The whole criminal justice system, that is why we say it's a system, but we are not operating as one unit. And there's supposed to be a high level of cooperation between the police, the judiciary, and the correctional services, the prison service of Trinidad and Tobago, ultimately to serve the public. Because that is what, when you hear Trinidad and Tobago prison service, we are providing a service to society. And that somehow gets lost in the mailing.
The voice you're hearing is that of Gerald Gordon. He's the General Secretary of the Prison Officers Association.
Be that as it may, what's your the percentage of your prison population, at least on remand yard? What percentage of your overall population would be on remand? And if you would explain what percentage of that, because I am under the impression that most of those on remand would be on murder and guns charges.
No,
arms and ammunition.
I don't have the exact statistics, but you would have various crimes, from rape, assault, house breaking, even some people there for maintenance, possession of marijuana, gun possession, robbery with violence. So there's a whole range of, so I can't say whether one is more than the other. What I could say is that at present, given it from our understanding, you're looking at, in total prison population, you're looking at somewhere between possibly 60 to 70%, or just probably a little more of that being remanded individuals. So the justice system is not working, because once they say justice delayed is justice denied. And the fact of the matter is that if we are saying that these people are innocent until proven guilty, then having them in an environment that's such what the remand is, having officers working that, you're actually placing those two groups of people in a very uncomfortable situation where they are going to be playing off of each other in a very antagonistic manner. The officer would want to maintain control, maintain security, ensure that he searches and whatnot. He is going to get resistance, because whereas I am sitting and we have to place ourselves in both people's position. So the officer wants to maintain order. The inmate is there for an inordinate amount of time.
Denied justice in his mind.
I mean, he would want, as any one of us, some sort of liberties. He would want to be comfortable. He would want to have something pleasant to eat. He would want to speak to his families. So what happened is that we are at a point, I think I've coined that term with the prison, we're suffering from something called organizational rot.
But
in that we have not kept pace. If we understand where we should be as a society, and I'm making sure, not as a service, not as the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service, where we should be as a society is really understanding that justice and the dispensation of justice needs to be dispensed in an equitable and fair manner. And the question we need to ask ourselves at the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, is this really being done? And why is it not being facilitated?
Well, we don't need to ask ourselves that. We know for years that it's not been done. And that a Ministry of Justice was created basically in a bid to try to bring these things together. And for years, at the opening of the new law term, every time we've heard the Chief Justice speak about that, he's been trying painstakingly, albeit it's been awfully slow, to get the wheels of justice turning, to be able to turn out these cases faster and to get it. As well as we know, for balance, there's also been the system whereby they've been going around on remand yard. This is what we've been getting from prisoners. They've been going around on remand yard and telling mostly murder accused that, listen, if you plead guilty, you're going to get, like a certain sentence and all of that. That's what attorneys have been telling their prisoners, But what I want to ask is why, yes, there's organizational rut. Why is all the rehabilitative and restorative work confined to those who are convicted? And you have all these people spending, already that you have a person on remand there for 8 or 10 years waiting for trial. And is there any restorative, rehabilitative work, anything available to them?
You have to understand classification. You need to understand, and the public needs to understand, that a remanded individual is simply being held to be presented to the court. Although we know now, after the time has passed, that that person is there for an inordinate amount of time. The logistics of setting up a program for people who could go to court tomorrow and be home is a very difficult thing. So it's something that we have never really ventured into. Only recently, I know that they were preparing some classrooms down there, and they were trying to do 1 or 2 developmental courses with the individuals there. But just the fact that the remanded situation, the circumstance is one that is high with uncertainty, it really places a lot of challenge on the organization to develop courses, because you'll know if you're developing a course, you'll have a course outline, people will have to have this amount of contact hours, but there's a lot of uncertainty with how that goes. And what we really need to understand is that infrastructure, technology, is what enables people like us to do our job. And when you have 7 and 8 inmates in a cell, and you as the officer, at least, and you go down on the wing and they are defecating in a bucket, and you have to check. Sometimes you can't see properly inside the cell because the place is so dark. It is not an enabling environment. And if we really be honest, if we were to even look at some first world situations, I visited Canada last year. Their turnaround time in remand is 7 days. The most someone will probably spend in remand is 2 years, and that is for capital offenses like murder. You see that there is a clear cooperation between the courts, the police, and the correctional services, in that from the first contact, there is an assessment that is done on the individual. That assessment is then transferred across to the correctional services. So they are not on crime fighting. From the first contact, it's about restoring the individual. They treat you as if you're going to the doctor.
Well, they treat you as though you're innocent until proven guilty.
But no, not only that, it goes beyond that, because they now look at what are the factors that would have led to you getting involved in crime.
Right.
And then they develop a program around remedies or making remedies to deal with that.
Which is crime fighting.
Which is, exactly.
Yeah.
You see, crime fighting, when we continue to say, police is not in the business of crime reduction. They are in the business of crime suppression.
Yes.
By their presence, you cause people to think twice. Hey, listen, that police pass. So that is why in other jurisdictions, you see that where there's a high visibility of law enforcement, you see that crime and crimes of whatever nature go down on the downturn. And then you have on the prison service, we are really responsible for crime reduction, because then we're dealing with the individual, but we can't get to deal with the individual if they are being held in the remand section for an inordinate amount of time.
Gerald Gordon is the General Secretary of the Prison Officers Association. A couple of major points you made there. You referred to the judiciary not being happy every time you speak as to the delay, but that delay was echoed by Ramesh Diosaran, who ran a commission. He said exactly what you said, and justice before conviction is what we're looking at. Yes. It was proposed that something should be done that will ensure that prisoners who are in remand are subject to these unbelievable conditions are in fact given preferential treatment going before the courts as against those who are out on bail. So you can expedite the amount of people in remand and do a faster turnover. Has anything been done to that, and what kind of discussions are you having? Because this includes the judiciary, as you said.
Yes. We have, myself and the president, we met with the Chief Justice, I think it was about 2 or 3 times we met. And we went through all of these discussions. I am saying that whether it be funding, I am not getting the feeling that there is a will to do what is necessary. And some simple things could be done. Maybe we need to set up bail courts, that all they deal with is bail. Maybe we need to, instead of transporting prisoners back and forth every day to go and hear that their matter is adjourned, maybe we need to set up the judicial center right there on the prison compound.
Which was suggested, wasn't it? How far is it? How close is it to being implemented?
It's not close at all. You see, politics and let me just leave it at politics dictates a lot of what does not happen. And at the end of the day, you sometimes wonder, why are people not making these sort of decisions? And I often come to, they are not concerned. It's you see, the prison doesn't make any money. That is what they say. But we definitely do contribute to the GDP. Because if we were to operate in an environment where every Monday morning 6-7 prisoners were escaping, where every Monday morning there was a riot in the prison, and I just want to say, I didn't say it, but good morning to all my hardworking prison officers, both male and female, because we continue to do, listen, a service that is beyond the beyond, simply because if you look at what we are stacked up against, and people say, well, every Monday morning all they're beating up the prisoners and this and that, but look in the history of time. How many escapes have we had? How many major riots have we had? When you look at where we deal with care for the individual, the inmate, it is something that we do. It's not of the best, but we have been able to make do with very little support from the executive. But as we're moving forward, this cannot continue because we are dealing now with a different class of offender. And although we have things on the line, because they're talking about, we have the inmate telephone system, which is supposed to be coming online as a pilot project in the maximum security prison very soon. And we talk about the grabbers and jammers coming in. We talk about the body scanners coming in. We talk about personal protection for the officer while he's on duty, stab-proof vests. Those are here. We have gotten the bulletproof vests for the people who have external duties to do. The infrastructure, no matter what we get on the peripheral, is not one that is enabling where you talk about maintenance of human rights.
At
and
MSP
the dignity.
even so? Even
no,
at
well,
the new
at,
MSP?
at maximum security prison, and let's not say new, it's the newest that we have. It's over 20 years old. And we are now in the first phase of the first upgrade that we have had since it has opened. So the officers there, the technical officers there, did a marvelous job over the years of maintaining the system as best as they could. So now we are upgrading the system. But the maximum security prison is more ideal since you have only 3 inmates in a cell. They have their own shower, they have their own toilet facilities within the cell. So it's a more of a humane situation than the remand facility. But when you talk about the logistics of managing a facility, and I just can't help but draw parallels. The maximum security prison, ideally, is we could house 2,500 people there. Logistically, that's a nightmare. Simply because when you look at simple things, just feeding 2,500 people, where everybody has to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you'll take whole day. And then if you have breakdowns on the system, because one will understand is one of the most technologically advanced correctional institutions in this part of the Caribbean, if you have breakdowns and you need to move people, then you can't rightfully have every division occupied, because then you run into another issue of where are you going to place these people while you do whatever repairs or whatnot. So the problem that how we look at dealing with the issue is that we have to start with the judiciary in getting these people out of the system or into the convicted section.
Why is it a logistical nightmare for example, feed 2,500 people?
Just because of the layout.
Or because of the number of prison officers that you have?
No,
what's the ratio of prison officers to prisoners?
The systems is not just that.
But what is the ratio of prison officers to prisoner? What are we working with now?
If we look at actual officers on the line, let me look at the remand prison. You have...
Are we being specific? Which one? Golden Grove?
Yeah, Golden Grove Remand. You're looking at, it floats just around 1,000 to 1,100, roughly. And at any one point in time, let me say the batch that is reporting, you're looking at probably around 32 to 40 officers.
So it's more than 10 to 1? That's more than...
Yeah. It's more than 10 to 1. It's a lot more. So even when I spoke about the logistics of the maximum security prison, there are security protocols built into the system. So you could only open one gate at a time. Then that gate needs to be closed before the other one could open. And one could understand moving that amount of people in and out of divisions to go to the food services to be fed. That's a logistical nightmare.
So would you admit that you need more prison officers, surely?
Of course. Right now, I know that there was a note with Cabinet. I know that we still probably have on that note probably just over 1,000 or so vacancies that have not been filled. And that is another issue that we have been asking for, in that we deal with the Public Service Commission. We need our own commission. Simply because the Public Service Commission is overwhelmed with probably 60, 70, 80,000 public servants. They deal with the setting of our exams, correcting of the papers, and all that sort of thing for entrance. And sometimes they do quickly, sometimes they're unable to. So what happens is that from the time of first contact with the prison service for an officer, it could take up to 2 years before we actually get that person into the service. So we need the whole system needs revamping, which could lend to having these people enter into the service, being trained and ready to work within the service. Yes.
It is 24 minutes after 10 o'clock. You have in Brunch at 107.7. Our guest is Gerald God, General Secretary of the Police Officers.